Hallo Leute, herzlich willkommen zurück im Deutschunterricht. Welcome back. We're moving on then to the final part of das Präsens, the final part of our present tense, separable verbs. So in the last lesson we looked at the difference between separable and inseparable verbs. So just a quick reminder, separable and inseparable verbs have two parts, a prefix attached to the main verb, okay? If this prefix has its own individual meaning, whereas a preposition can stand alone without the verb, it's a separable verb. If this prefix does not have its own individual meaning, it's an inseparable verb. Or the easiest thing we could maybe do is there's 8 inseparable prefixes, so if we learn off them, if it has the prefix b, ent, g, mis, fert, sir, it's inseparable. If it has any other prefix, it's separable, generally, okay? So we looked at how to put inseparable verbs into the present tense. Last thing that we need to look at is separable verbs in the present tense. And then we're finished. That's everything you need to know with the present tense, okay? So, to put a separable verb into the present tense, we separate the prefix from the rest of the verb and put it at the end of the sentence. So, that is ganz wichtig, very, very important. Hence the name separable verbs. We separate the prefix, okay? So, if we have a separable verb, we want to put it into the present tense. First thing you do is you get your prefix, you separate it, and you put it at the very, very end, okay? But it's important we don't forget about the prefix, and that can happen particularly in our spoken German. We might be talking and then we might forget to put our prefix at the end, or when we're writing as well. But it's really, really important, okay, that we should always be reading back over our sentences anyway, but particularly if you're aware you're using a separable verb, because if you forget the prefix, it can completely change the meaning of a sentence. So we separate the prefix and we put it to the end of the sentence, but don't completely forget about it, okay? We separate it and we go, because that's all we have to do with the prefix, okay? We don't do anything else to the prefix. We separate it, we put it at the end, and that's it. We don't do anything else to it, but don't forget about it, because it's still part of the verb, it's part of the meaning, it needs to be in the sentence, it needs to be at the end, okay? So, once we've taken off the prefix, the basic or the rest of the verb is just conjugated as normal. So do you remember with the inseparable verbs, we left our prefix on, conjugated the main verb as normal. Same thing, and put it in second place. Same thing now with our separable verbs. The only difference here is our prefix has been taken off, it's been separated, and it's been put to the end. Okay, that's the only difference there. Separable verbs, we take off our prefix, put it to the end, rest of the verb then is conjugated as normal. But again, you need to be careful if that basic verb is irregular. You treat it as it is normally, as if the prefix isn't there, okay? So if it's an irregular verb, normally in the present tense, it's still irregular and you conjugate it accordingly. Then you give it its root change for du the S-man, okay? This conjugated form of the verb then is placed in second position, okay? So our basic verb that's conjugated is put in second position and our prefix is at the end, okay? And then any other information will go between the verb and the prefix. And that's basically it, okay? So separate your prefix, put it at the end, conjugate your main verb as normal, being careful if it's irregular, put it in second place. If you have any other information, then you may not have any other information, that's it. If you do have any other information in the sentence, it will go between your main verb and your prefix, okay? So, zum Beispiel, here's an example. Here I have the verb aufmachen, which means to open, okay? So here I have auf, my prefix, stuck onto the verb machen, to make or do, okay? So I have two parts here, a prefix and a main verb. I know that this one is separable because auf is a preposition, on, it has its own individual meaning, so that tells me it's a separable verb. Or I know it's not one of my 8 inseparable prefixes. Is it included in b, ent, g, mis, fert, sir? Is auf there? No, so I know it's separable. So once I know that my prefix is separable, that's a separable verb, I take off that prefix, okay? I take off my prefix and that will go to the end of the sentence, okay? And then the rest of my verb machen, I conjugate as normal, okay? So auf goes to the end and then I conjugate machen as I would normally, okay? Machen is just a regular verb, so it doesn't get any root change for du or the S-man, just gets the normal endings, your E, S-T, T-E-N, T-E-N. So auf goes to the end and machen then is conjugated and put in second place. and if you have any other information, then it goes between these two things. So here is an example. So here I'm using the verb aufmachen and das Fenster. So aufmachen is to open. Here I'm saying I open the window, you open the window, he, she, it, one opens the window, we open the window, you plural open the window, they open the window, you formal open the window, okay? So my auf, you can see, goes to the end of the sentence, okay? We don't forget about it. Oops, wrong one. We don't forget about it. It just goes to the end of the sentence. So auf is taken off and goes to the very end of the sentence. Machen then is conjugated depending on the subject and put in second place. So ich mache, du machst, sie, es, man macht, wir machen, ihr macht, sie machen, sie machen. So machen is conjugated as normal, put in second place, okay? And then any other information goes between those two things then, okay? So we have our basic verb in second place and our prefix at the end, and then any other information goes between those two things, okay? So ich mache das Fenster auf, I open the window, du machst das Fenster auf, you open the window, sie, es, man macht das Fenster auf, he, she, it, one opens the window, wir machen das Fenster auf, we open the window, ihr macht das Fenster auf, you plural open the window, sie machen das Fenster auf, they open the window, sie machen das Fenster auf, you formal open the window, okay? If we forgot our prefix at the end, ich mache das Fenster, I make or do the window. So do you see how our prefix is really, really important there? Do not forget it, okay? Because it can completely change the meaning of a sentence. Ich mache das Fenster auf, I open the window. Ich mache das Fenster, I make the window. Or if we didn't have das Fenster, so if you don't have then any other extra information, it would just be, so say if we took out that, it would just be ich mache auf, I open, okay? So you may not always have an extra piece of information, but the prefix still goes at the end and our verb still goes in second place. So ich mache auf, I open, du machst auf, you open, sie, es, man macht auf, he, she, it, one opens, und so weiter and so forth. So prefix is always at the end, verb is always in second position, but again, ich mache auf, I open, ich mache, I make or do. So don't forget about our prefix there, okay? Good, so that's what we do with our separable verbs, and here's an example of just an irregular one, okay? So again, abwaschen, I have the prefix ab stuck onto waschen, it's separable, I can separate ab from waschen, so that's what I do. I separate ab and I put it at the very end, and then my other verb waschen is just conjugated as normal and put in second place, okay? Now, waschen is irregular, so it's still irregular even though it's part of a separable verb now, okay? That doesn't change, it's still irregular. It's treated as I would normally, so it's irregular, so that means it gets a root change for du, sie, es, man. So as you can see here, du wäscht das Geschirr ab, you wash up the dishes, sie, es, man wäscht das Geschirr ab, he, she, it, one washes up the dishes. So you keep your root change even if it's part of a separable or inseparable verb, okay? So ich wasche das Geschirr ab, I wash up the dishes, du wäscht das Geschirr ab, you wash up the dishes, sie, es, man wäscht das Geschirr ab, he, she, it, one washes up the dishes, wir waschen das Geschirr ab, we wash up the dishes, ihr wascht das Geschirr ab, you wash up the dishes, sie waschen das Geschirr ab, sie waschen das Geschirr ab, they, you form, wash up the dishes, okay? So prefix goes to the end, main verb is conjugated as normal, and any other information then goes between those two verbs, okay? So that's what we do with our separable verbs in the present tense. That's how we put them into the present tense, okay? So we're going to do a little bit of practice now. Go back to my present tense. So, last thing then, we're going to do a bit of practice, all right? So here I have some sentences. They all contain separable verbs. So we are going to conjugiere die Verben, conjugate the verbs, and kind of rewrite the sentences here, okay? So remember, these are all inseparable verbs, right? So, ich ausgehen jeden Freitag. I want to say, I go out every Friday. So gehen is the verb to go, ausgehen the verb to go out, okay? Ausgehen is a separable verb. If I wasn't sure, It's not one of my 8 inseparable prefixes, and it also has its own meaning. It's a preposition and it means out of or out. So so I go out every Friday, okay? So it's an inseparable verb. So my prefix is separated, it's a separable verb, so my prefix is separated and goes to the end, okay? So that's going to go to the end. I can rewrite it in a second if I want. Then the rest of the verb gain is conjugated as normal. So I want to conjugate gain for my subject, which is ich. Gain is just a regular verb in the present tense. It doesn't get a vowel change, so it's just conjugated as normal. I take off my en and add on my ending. My ending for ich is e, so I end up with ich gehe. So remember, this form of the verb goes in second place. Ich gehe aus, I go out. I could leave it at that if I didn't have any more information, but I do have more information here. I have jeden Freitag. I want to say I go out every Friday. Any other information goes between those my verb and my prefix then. So ich gehe jeden Freitag. I'm getting a bit stuck for space here. Jeden Freitag aus. So I go out every Friday. Ich gehe jeden Freitag, I go every Friday. Ich gehe jeden Freitag aus, I go out every Friday. So remember, don't forget about that prefix there, okay? Der Lehrer plus abholen die Bücher. So the teacher collects, that should say die Bücher, sorry, that's ein Fehler da. Der Lehrer, so the teacher collects the books, okay? Abholen is a separable verb. Ab can be used by itself, it's a preposition, and also it's not one of our 8 inseparable prefixes. So ab is going to go at the end of the sentence then, okay? So ab is going to go here at the very end of my sentence, okay? Rest of the verb then is conjugated as normal. It's regular, so I just conjugate it as I would normally. I take off my en and add on my ending for my subject. So the person doing my verb is der Lehrer, the teacher. So the teacher collects the books. If I wasn't going to say the teacher, I would say he collects the books, okay? So I use my ending for he, which is T. So der Lehrer holt. Okay, so take off my en, add on my ending. Der Lehrer holt ab, the teacher collects. If I could leave it at that, but I have some more information here. I have die Bücher, he's collecting the books. So I add in then die Bücher between my prefix and my verb. So I end up with der Lehrer holt die Bücher ab. Good. I'm going to go into number 4 here. Okay, we'll just do a few more. So number 4, der Bus something 14 Uhr. The bus, abfahren is the verb to depart, okay? The bus departs at 4 o'clock. So I have the verb abfahren, it's separable because ab can be used by itself as a preposition, has its own individual meaning, and also it's not one of my 8 inseparable prepositions. So ab is going to go at the end of the sentence, okay? And then I conjugate fahren as I would normally. Now, fahren is an irregular verb, you might remember, okay? Irregular verb. It gets a root change for du the S-man, okay? So I may or may not need to worry about the root change. It depends on who's doing the action. So here I have the bus doing the action. The bus departs. If I wasn't going to say the bus departs, I would say it departs. So I treat it like it. So du the S-man, remember, for irregular verbs, get a change. So fahren, if you can remember, A changes to umlaut, so it changes to fährt. So it gets its normal ending, its T ending, plus a root change. So I end up with der Bus fährt. It's my second thing in the sentence after the bus. The writing is not getting any better so far. Fährt. Der Bus fährt. Ab is the bus departs. The bus departs at 2 o'clock. Where are you gone? 14 Uhr. So here I have then my full sentence. Der Bus fährt 14 Uhr ab. So there's a lot going on in this one here. So I have my separable verb, prefix at the end, my basic verb then conjugated as normal in second place. Being careful here because fahren is irregular, so it gets a vowel change for du as the S-man. So that's why I ended up with fährt, okay, with my umlaut. Alright, we'll do one more. So we might have a look at then, we'll just do the next one here, number 5. So anrufen is the verb to ring. So we ring our auntie every week. Okay, so anrufen is separable. An has its own individual meaning, and also it's not one of my 8 inseparable prepositions. Okay, so that I separated that. So it's a separable prefix, so I separated. An goes to the end of the sentence, and I conjugate rufen as normal. Rufen is just a normal regular verb, so I conjugate it as I would normally in the present tense. So I take off my en and add on the correct ending for my subject. My subject who's doing my verb is wir, okay? So I add on the ending for wir, which is en. So I end up with wir rufen. So that form of the verb goes in second place, remember? Make it a little bit clearer for you. Wir rufen, okay? So wir rufen an, we ring. Is there more information? Yes, we're saying we ring our aunt every week, so any other information goes between my prefix and my verb. So wir rufen jede Woche unsere Tante. I keep not leaving enough space. Tante an. Great. Well, that's fast. That's what we do with separable verbs. So once we know our verb is separable, separate the prefix, put it at the end, conjugate the basic verb then as normal, put it in second place, being careful if our verb is irregular. See the way what I was doing there, where I was just putting the verb, the prefix in straight away at the end, and then look, if I had to rub something out and kind of reconstruct my sentence at the end, I did to make it look kind of tidy. That's what I would recommend doing at the start while we're getting used to irregular verbs, okay? Put in your prefix at the end straight away in pencil or whatever, and you can always fix it then after. And then when you start getting more comfortable with them, you mightn't have to do that anymore, and you'll just remember, okay, I put in my you'll write the sentence and then just put it in at the end. But that's what I'd recommend doing at the start while we're getting used to separable verbs. Just take off the prefix, put it at the end straight away, in pencil or even in pen and scribble it out, whatever you want, but just so you don't forget, okay? So like I was doing there, like if you have to scribble it out or fix up your sentence after, that's fine, as long as our prefix is there, okay? So das war's, das ist alles mit, fast alles, almost everything. Almost forgot we have a few exceptions, okay? The following prefixes may cause a verb to be separable or inseparable. So these prefixes here, if you see them at the start of a verb, it changes. The verb may be separable or inseparable. It depends on the verb, okay? But generally, durch and cause the verb to be separable, and mostly über, unter, hinter, and wieder will cause the verb to be inseparable, okay? So just be careful with that there. So if you see durch and at the start of a verb, those prefixes generally will be 9 times out of 10 will be separable, and same with über, unter, hinter, and wieder, 9 times out of 10 will be inseparable, but it can vary, so just be careful with those. So, das war's für heute dann. Das ist alles mit dem Präsens, everything with the present tense. So I hope that helps, und wir sehen uns im nächsten Unterricht.